All right, people, it's the Married at First Sight finale. We're coming back to when all of the couples have met up again just to hang out. And the Madison and Michelle, the MMs were having, no, it's not MM, but it's the two M's, were having a little babe battle. And they punned the whole babe thing, kind of throughout the episode a little bit. But basically, Michelle hears Madison talking about how she didn't give a bleep about David and all this stuff. So Michelle's like, okay, hold on a second. You're going to talk about me when I'm not there. Let me come over there. So she gets over there. And Madison's really defensive and saying, like, why do you even care? You don't even care about him and all this. So she's like, well, what I really care about is that you were supposed to be my friend and you just kind of played me and was with my man and not letting me know what was going on. She's like, well, basically he wasn't really your man. You didn't want him. So what's the point? So they were kind of doing their back and forth. And Madison's like, well, why are you doing this? She's like, wait a minute. Why are you asking me why am I doing something when you're the one that did what you did? So I've personally had situations, not this deep, when people have messed up on me and they get mad at me because I have a response for their ill actions. Like, you should be mad at yourself. You're the one that messed up. Why are you getting mad at me because you messed up? So that's basically what was happening with Madison. And David's just like, you know what? He tried to pull Madison to the side. He's like, no, hold on, let me talk to you privately. Then he just was like, you know what? We're just going to leave right now. There's really nothing else to say. Basically, he didn't want to do this anymore. And for me, when he walked out, I was like, that was actually a good thing that he was leaving. And I forgot something Carla was saying, and then they were kind of like joking and mocking what Carla said as they were walking out, and Madison said something about, oh, I have devil horns on. And she kind of did look like a lady devil there. I could definitely see the horns. I mean, somebody, if you haven't already, take a picture of those two and put horns on them both. They were both wearing red, matching, but Madison had more of an attitude than David did. Alan was looking sick the whole time. And Michelle was like, after they left, she feels like she's going to cry. And as they were leaving, nobody else saw this, but the cameras did, that Madison and David smooched. They gave each other a smooch and they act like it was their first kiss. Whatever. Like, he was like, I think he said, I know what you were trying to do. I wanted to do that too or something, whatever. And they kissed and was like, this was not your first kiss. Keep walking, guys. Keep walking. And she's just mad because she feels like, Michelle's like, it's the scenario that she's left with, that she's sitting here alone looking like the loser, and they get to walk away scot-free in their wrongness. And this is kind of the story plot that happens to a lot of people, so you're not the first one, Michelle. I do have a number of notes, but I think I'm going to skip through and skip over some stuff because sometimes I get stuck on my notes to the point where I'm trying to get every bit by bit and things get kind of clumsy and clunky, and they may a bit, but I'm going to try to avoid that this time. So we see more from, I kind of collected everything, like kind of couple to couple. So we're going to continue to talk about Madison and David, and they were hungover. They were both looking like a mess, and he decides to get his tattoo taken off from a young lady he was with off and on for 12 years. So they're gonna not take it off but cover it up. And they were just chatting and then talking and all of this stuff as this process was happening. And she's like, Michelle was just trying to play the victim and all of this. She was the victim. Anyway, he was like, oh, they were so good when you planted that kiss on me. Yeah, again, not the first one. And they had their little bonding moment as took this tattoo off. But I'm like, you were with somebody for 12 years off and on. To me, another red flag. Long-term relationships that don't end up anywhere, to me, just seems like a red flag. I mean, if you had 12 years to waste on someone, it truly, sadly, was a waste, and you were wasting that person's time if you were not going to commit to them. Then they were talking about each other's fetishes and doing stuff in public. And she was like, mine was on a Ferris wheel. And, David was just getting a kick out of all of these things she was saying. Then they had more kisses, and this kiss was like a little bit too much, a little bit extra on that kiss that I didn't really want to see. And she's like, the tattoo looks really good, and I thought it looked bad, but I didn't even know what it was, but it looked like something was covered up too on his chest. Oh, these guys. Carla and Juan are leaving their apartment. Like, they're starting like days after, the process is over. So I think it's been a few days or such, and they're finally leaving the apartment that they're sharing together for the process. And, they talk about the party. And Juan is still like, I don't know, like Juan keeps saying throughout the whole episode, I hope we can still be friends, and I hope we're still good, and we could be cordial, and maybe we can hang out sometime, even if it's quarterly. Like, I'm like, well, he has a whole hangout plan, and on her end, she's like, she really doesn't want to befriend him like that. She came for marriage, and now she's gonna focus on herself and close this chapter. She lets him know, she didn't say that in front of him, but she did say they were spending a lot of time together, and she kind of wants to separate herself from that since this process is over. And then Juan's like, I know we're not going to be best friends or whatever, but we're still going to be good or whatever. So, and again, she says she didn't come here for friends, and things could have worked out possibly if Juan didn't have his checklist. You know what? I kind of get the whole thing about when guys still want to be friends, and the fact that he actually does look sad and kind of like he misses the bond that they had. Probably having someone there with you every day to wake up to, even if you guys aren't together like that, someone that you're cool with and you have a good time with and is supportive. I think he's missing that a little bit. And so he wants to still be friends. And for me, I've had the guys still try to be friends with me, and then they always try to come back in a romantic way. And I feel like sometimes they feel like it's safer that way. Like, oh, I was so scared in this committed thing. Well, let's just be friends. And then if we're friends, I might be able to get her to fool around with me sometime, and I might get a few little benefits. I'm not saying Juan was going to be that guy, but hey, I can't say that he may not have been that guy. I do feel like he cared about her and was remorseful in a way about how things ended up. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. You didn't choose me. I'm not going to still be in your life hanging around, boosting you, showing you love and inspiration. You should have picked me, and then you would have got all that. So, like, again, some people want to be in your life and get the benefits of you, but they didn't want you in this way, but they'll take you in that way. And she's like, if you didn't want me in this way, then you don't get me at all. In a way, I feel like it could be maybe a little bit spiteful, but in a way, I think she also is protecting her own feelings and her own heart, because I do feel like she built a bond with him, and he built a bond with her, and she just doesn't want to have that hope. Because I know, like, if I was still friends with an ex and we were always connecting and talking, in the back of my mind, I will still have that thought that, one day maybe they'll be like, you want to do this for real? Or, so for me, I feel like if he was really saw that much potential in her, he could have just stayed married to her and said, well, let's see what's going to happen as we go forward. Let's try to build this. But that wasn't what he was feeling. So, you can't have your cake and eat it too. All right, so I think it's kind of funny, and I kind of like the fact that he still has he still kind of wants something with her. But she's like, I'm not going to give you the benefit of that. All right. He wasn't scummy, but he still didn't choose her. So he gets what he gets what he gets. Okay, so Camille's moving in with Thomas. They're leaving the apartment as well. And they're talking about the closet space, and he's talking about the different concessions he can make, parking, their parking space. He'll park on the street and she can have his space and all of this. So she's happy that they're making plans, even though they're short-term plans. She's gonna decide to move into his place. So they do have a plan. And I was just thinking, like, she was glad that he had something for her to follow. And I'm just like, lead me, baby. Like, guys, we just want you to have some leadership qualities. Things don't have to be perfect, but at least you have us in mind. And a woman, for me, I didn't always want to run the show. I always wanted someone that was capable of leading, that wanted to lead, that had a heart for me to lead, to do so. And I'm glad that Thomas is being that guy. They're grinning, they're smiling, they're cute together. I like it. So Michelle and Carla, they hang out. They say, oh, it's our first date. They're joking around. I was like, it was a little weird, but hey, I guess it's a girl date. And Carla's like, well, I'm glad you confronted them and you handled all the situations. Like, yeah, I'm glad that I met you too, because at least we have this bond. I always feel like a bond with you, babe. And then they were kind of joking about the babe battle, because they were, the two M's, Michelle and Madison, were having a babe battle. She's like, babe, babe, babe. So it was funny that they were having that babe battle. I called it the Karen battle, but the babe battle sounds a lot better. And she was just really upset that they had no remorse, especially Madison. She didn't really have any remorse. She didn't own up to anything that she did. Not really. Michelle, her relationship status is just chill. And Carla's like, she's like, well, Carla, how do you feel? Are you bummed about this? And she said, well, at least I have a better idea of what I want in a relationship and what I expect and what I demand. And I have better standards for what I want. So yeah, I think that was a good lesson. The same thing with her still hanging with people like Juan. Like, it's just like still hanging out with your ex, and they're expecting things, and sometimes they don't even expect physical things, but you still have such a tight bond. They're still getting the benefit of your company, and at times it's just like, you have to demand more, because if you don't, people will give you the bare minimum of what they have. So I'm glad she's learned that lesson about, okay, this is what I need and what I deserve in a relationship, and this is what I expect from a man that's supposed to love me, want me, and spend their life with me. And she's more optimistic. And she says, and Michelle's like, but it is a bummer we're divorced. We're two divorcees under 30. They said it does kind of have a ring to it. Michelle says, she's not sure if she's ready to date again. And do you tell your new person, hey, I was just married and I'm divorced? And Carla was like, well, just make it like Bridgerton, because neither of us consummated our marriages. So you can just act like, she's like, I'm a new virgin now because, I've been in this relationship that I didn't consummate. Well, I wouldn't say I was a born again virgin, but they did never consummate, and they were like, we both only kissed our spouse at the wedding, and there was no other kissing beyond that. So she's like, technically, since we didn't consummate, our marriages technically don't count. And then Carla says, yeah, and Juan didn't use his magic wand on me. She didn't use the word on. And it was kind of a funny moment. Juan and wand, that word kind of rhymes. But they was like, well, I'm happy we'll be longtime friends, right, babe? She's like, yeah, babe. So they used a little babe puns that were going on with Michelle and Madison, though those babes were harsh and angry. Camille and Thomas are acclimating to his place. He's like, well, hopefully she doesn't judge me And she's happy with the place because, I used to be a bachelor, so now I'm working on transitioning that, and we're working together to make this new space for each other. So she's bringing some new things in and some accessories and getting rid of some old stuff. The closet space and the bathroom are air spaces that they're talking about. And she's just enjoying that Thomas is there. He's reassuring, and that basically her heart is in good hands, and they do a little cheers with each other in their new place. And then next time we see them, as they continue to fix up the place, she finally puts on that lingerie that she was teasing him with. And I thought that was a good moment because now she knows that he's in it for real. She's in his place. They seem to be established. She's moving all her stuff in. So it really is real at this point. He doesn't look like he's gonna pull a 180 on her and be like, you know what? That's why she wanted him to have a plan, because if she didn't have a place to set up shop and say this is our home and we're married, then I understand now she feels more secure. Even though he already been with her, he now gets the benefit of this lingerie. But everything happened within the marriage, so the marriage is the marriage, right? Then we get to hang out with Madison and David all day. Yay, we get to see them get closer and closer with their bond. But first, Madison talks with her dad about the situation. She says she felt some shame and guilt when connecting with David instead of her own husband. The dad says, don't beat yourself up so badly. It's not all about you. Do you have any regrets? And she's like, well, I just feel bad for Alan. Wish I was more honest. I'm like, well, why didn't you say this to them? You're telling your dad all this, and the people that really needed to hear it, they should have heard this information. And then dad's like, well, who's this David person? Where did he come from? And she just talks about the catching of the feelings, just like you catch a baseball in a mitt. She caught the feelings, and the dad said, the heart wants what it wants, go for it if this is what you really want, and I'm for it. I'm like, dude, this is totally a man mentality. Her and her dad are on the same page about this. Like, for me, even though, yeah, go for it, but it's kind of like just the way when you enter something in a wrong way, to me, it can set the stage for you to have a bad foundation in a relationship. Because if she would have went for it after the marriage, if he would have waited, it would have been a lot more respectful setting that stage. But to do it in the middle of the marriage, it's like you have no restraint, no self-control, no respect for marriage, no respect for yourselves at the end of the day. And whether this works out or not, that's always going to be your foundation. And that's the story you're going to have to tell your kids, if or when you have your kids, or if this thing even lasts, right? So it's like 8 days after the divorce, and they're going on their ice cream date. This little ice cream date together now, Madison and David. And he was like, oh, they were tasting each other's ice cream and sharing. He's like, oh, that's good. He's like, speaking of this dessert, this morning's dessert was really good. So I'm like, oh, no. Please don't talk about this. Madison's acting clueless. Oh, really? It was? Oh, sure. You know what you did. Anyway, then she ends up saying, yeah, I think it was pretty good too. We were in sync. It ain't no vanilla. Like, really? What does that mean? Ain't no vanilla. So you're saying you were always into men of color this whole time? You weren't into vanilla? I'm confused. Are you putting down your own? I don't know. And he was like, I can get used to that. And I was just like, yuck. You guys get on my nerves. If you guys were a happy, loving, honest couple like Camille and Thomas, I would be like, oh, that's cute for them. But because they did what they did, I'm just like, yuck for just about everything that they say. And she's like, oh, I feel closer to you. He's like, we decide we're not going to see other people. Like, what are the boundaries and triggers that you have and all that stuff? So he's acting all concerned and caring, and they look different. Like, I see the different look in them. Like, they have this connection. Like, I could tell that they probably have been intimate, but I feel like they've been intimate before that, but maybe they just feel more acclimated and maybe they have adjusted and got closer because they were probably not sneaking anymore, which they were doing before. They may have been messing around, but maybe at this point they're just like open with it and they're together all the time. So now they even look different. They look bright. They look like they're together. You know, they have that look, that matching look that I can't explain, but they have it. So now he's taking her on her 30th birthday date. And, you know, he dresses okay to me, but they're at this super fancy place. Like, I would hang out with him dressed like that. But, you know, she's got on like this really fancy dress and he has what he has on. So to me, he looks like a high school guy that got dressed up, but he's still in high school. So their idea of being dressed up is not like a grown man's idea of being dressed up. That's just look for me. Then he brings a drink. That they bring drinks, and the one drink actually reads the words, "I just want to eat you up." Of course he's gonna use this pun, and he probably is gonna make some t-shirts to go with it. I mean, this guy, I feel like in a way it's like a setup. Like, guys knew what you were gonna do. You were gonna try to make maths history by playing this little game that you played. I don't know. It reads setup to me. So, I think he was asking what's to come, and she's like, well, it feels right. And he was like, well, I can see myself proposing one day. And they go back to whoever's place that was. I don't know whose place it was. But David, because I don't know if he's still in his basement or he left the basement. I really don't know what his living situation is. Maybe they could clear that up, because they did not address that on this episode. So David has all these balloons set up. It did look pretty awesome for her 30th birthday. He's like, well, I know you like purple. He's like super attentive to her. And she's like, this is wonderful. No one's ever done this for me. But just don't take me for granted. You know, everything's not going to be perfect. But just, don't take me for granted. And he's like, well, no, I'm not going to fumble you. I'm not going to drop the ball on this one. And they say, I love you. And they kiss. And they do the typical things. And they're going to talking about what they're going to do tonight with each other and blah, blah, blah. All right. Now I'm going to go to Alan and Juan first, and then I'll get to one of the other big stories of the night. Alan and Juan, they meet up, and, he's like, well, have you been talking to anybody? And how's everything going with, have you talked to any of the people from the cast? How's everything going with Carl? It's like, we don't really talk, but we're cool or whatever. So Alan's like, well, I've been on some dates. I have fun. But I'm not ready for anything serious. I've been exploring my urges. And then he starts talking about different intimate urges. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because Juan is like, okay, urges? Like, can you explain? I'm confused. So he talks about BDSM. And I hope it's okay for me to say that on there. But when he made that weird statement about the latex when they were having the party at the retreat and they were doing like a who would do this question. Yeah, he said something weird about latex and it was kind of weird and creepy. Maybe that's why Madison wasn't up for him. I don't know what other creepy things he could have said. Anyway, Juan was like, I'm not knocking your freak or anything, though he didn't use those words. We said, are you kind of playing a role? Are you tired of being the nice guy, so you're going to go out here and do all of this? But you don't want these people to touch your emotional and personal side. And he's like, no, I'm just, trying to explore and see what's out there and all that stuff. And I'm just trying to figure out me, basically. All right, so let's go to... So now that question is answered because we've been seeing that teaser for some time. And it's like, okay, now I get to see what this teaser was about. So M is on a date. She's like, I'm going to get back out there. So she dates her friend from the 5th or 6th grade. They reconnected on social media, and Brandon is at this point sleeping on his sister's couch because he's going through a divorce himself. Why is he sleeping on his sister's couch? To me, I feel like that's a sign that he's in the doghouse and the divorce was his fault. But he was like, his weird analogies of, he was like talking about he was in the right car going down the wrong road, and they were together for 10 years. And to me, the divorce reasons don't sound clear. To me, I feel like he would really need to break this explanation down to me. Then she tells him about her situation, and basically he was kind of shocked, but basically she was telling him, hey, this was an experiment. This is, married at first sight, right? She said her ex was mean to her, yelled at her, and all that stuff. His situation is he has 2 kids. He's a fire department lieutenant. He's doing real estate, and he's mesmerized by him. And he's glad that they have a second chance together. And when he falls hard. So second chances don't always work. I can attest to that. A lot of times there's this idea that second chances are meant to be, but I just want to break that stigma now and say that I had a bad experience with my second time around with someone. Just saying. To me, it's 2 unhealed people moving too fast. Both going through a divorce, coming out of a divorce. And I think someone even mentioned that they're technically still married. The ink hasn't dried on the papers at this point. But they're, basically this is supposed to just be a date, but there's a lot of serious conversation, right? So now they, it seems as if their date went well and they hit it off. But like I said, it seems a little bit too fast the way things are going. So Em invites the girls over. She invites Carla and Camille over, and they ask, how's married life, Camille? She's like, we're at a good place. His jokes are funny. So, I really think I'm in love now. I really feel married now because he's actually growing on me, I guess. And Carla's like, well, how are you doing, Carla? Well, she said she allowed herself to cry and let things go, and she just learned a lot about herself through this process. And then M's like, I feel free. I went on a date. And they're like, oh, okay. Tell us about him. It's like, he's a tall firefighter buff. He wants things and he's not afraid to talk about it. He's actually going to be coming by for taking me on a date. To me, like, she just set this up. Like, why would you invite them over so that you knew he was coming? Like, it was weird. So he comes in. Oh, they ask her, was it easy to get back out there? She's like, yeah, it was real easy for me to get back out there. And she showed the guy off to her girls, and and he's just like, he's kind of got a charmer vibe. And they're like, she's like, well, we're taking our time. And Carla's kind of looking sus at this whole situation. And her red flag moment for Carla was like when he said that she was his light at the end of the tunnel in this past 2 years. And like, she's like, well, that's a red flag because you can't put all the light on somebody, a person in your life. You have to have found the light on your own. And what are you bringing if you didn't have any light? So I get where she was going with that. She said, hopefully it's genuine and hopefully this is good. But, Carla had her red flag moment, and Camille was looking funny too. Like, it's too fast. It's something that we're all thinking when we saw the preview. They're basically mirroring what we all were thinking. So she talks to her cousin, and he knows about this new guy. They know each other actually. So there's high hopes to be had, but he's telling her to be cautious. The food is fooding in this restaurant is so cool. It looks like you're walking into a drawing, like an uncolored coloring book. This is what the restaurant looks like. It's wild. I think it looks really cool, but the food is fooding. Even when she was on the date with the guy before Brandon, their first date, the food was fooding there. Like, I need to just hang out with him and we need to go to eat somewhere because she knows where all the good food is. So, cousin is reading him very well. He is hitting him with some hard questions, but he also knows the guy. So I feel like what he says, what he's gonna say, is going to be based off the fact that he kind of knows this guy. So he's like, well, what's your plan? And they're basically saying, we care about each other and stuff, but we're still trying to figure things out. So cousin says, words aren't enough. You kind of really gotta, Mr. Bubba Smith / Akechi is what he called him, Bubba Smith. He had good words too. So, it's got to be more about words. But basically, you guys got my blessing. He's like, hey, I'm not trying to do this every 2 months, so y'all better make this work and figure this out. So Cuz is gone at this point, and they're doing like the Lady and the Tramp with the French fries, and I think the producer's now asking, M's not in the room any longer in the restaurant. It's like, what's next for y'all? And then suddenly this dude gets on his knees and proposes and like, marry me. She's like, yeah. And then the producer's like, you're not scared? She's like, nope. Then they're going to engagement ring shopping. It's like, we about to get married. We getting married. So the first married wasn't the real married like on the show. So they really getting married. This is the real married this time. And then he's like, well, they're looking at the rings and all of that. And then they tell the young lady they knew each other when they were kids. And she's like, oh, this must be meant to be that you guys knew each other for so long. And now you're brought back together and all of this. So then he's like, well, since we got this ring right now, I didn't have a ring the first time. So now he get on his knee again, doing a second proposal. And he's like, you've been a blessing to me and all of this. And she probably will be a great blessing when you get to move into her nice house and off of your sister's couch. That's going to be real nice. They're wearing matching fits. And I'm like, to me, I wonder if she had him waiting in the wings, because it's like, this is just too good to be true. Was it like, if this show don't work, Brandon, would you be up to marry me? Because I know your marriage is going bad. You know how some people have that person that, hey, if in 10 years we're both alone, do you want to try to make it work? I'm like, is that the type of pact that you guys made? Because this is just like a little bit too good to be true. Come on. And then the word ready to love was mentioned. It just made me think of the show Ready to Love. Like, this person is ready to love, and she's like, I feel loved. She's questioning and giving us face. She's giving us that icky face, like, I don't know, is gonna be any triggers or what's gonna happen? It's like, for me or for you, like, and he's like, it's okay to have a bad marriage, you can basically trust me, you don't have to think that I'm like the other guy. Okay. So happily ever after is on its way, but first we go to Thomas and Camille's again. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Thomas. She makes him a nice birthday breakfast. I see eggs, I see a bunch of bacon and 2 giant cinnamon rolls. I don't know if he can eat all of that's too many cinnamon rolls. But he looks happy. She's like, there you go, King. This is your breakfast. And they're having a birthday party. So this is what brings them all back together. M comes in there showing off her new man and engagement ring. Camille's a bit shook. Hey, these guys are now engaged. You just introduced us to this dude a minute ago. Then y'all jumped to engagement, and even David was like, what the blank. But he said he's happy for her. And I think they were asking her, have you told your mom? Say, no, I haven't told my mom yet because she may not think it's real. Probably because what just happened with the catchy is too fast. Of course, most people don't think it's real. I'm sure that the people you're telling don't think it's real. Your mom won't think it's real. They don't think it's real either. But, you know, everybody's sitting there happy for you. But Michelle, she's also like, what? It's too fast. You know, this is off to the side, of course. So David and Michelle are both surprised. Camille's surprised. And Michelle's like, too fast. What's the rush? You know, but hopefully she's happy. And that's the consensus with everyone when it comes to her. Like, to me, I feel like you just came. Is this supposed to be about Thomas' birthday? You come flaunting your new man. It seems like you have agenda. Anyway, Thomas, Camille, they kind of do a toast, and he's like, yeah, this is a new fresh year for us, things are looking up, and this is a blessing for my birthday. He's like, you know, it's not easy, I didn't know I'd make it to 28, and they kind of laugh it off because I think he's like, what, 42 or something like that. But he loves her, he loves them, he's all love. Everybody came to show support. Alan says, you know, he shows support for everybody that is, you know, okay, he's showing support definitely for Thomas and Camille, but also Em and her new man, and David and Madison. You know, Madison's off to the side, and they're like, she's like, well, we don't get the same support though. Well, yeah, because you lied to everybody in the process, so no thank you. Alan, Carla, and Michelle, like, wow, I think Em and Brandon, her new husband-to-be, are talking with David and Madison and whatnot, and they're talking about what's going on with them, and that they're together, and they're trying to make this work, and they're trying to have this relationship. And, you know, Alan, Carla, and Michelle are over there dishing, and while David basically professing his love. And Em is like, I love it. And I'm like, why? Alan was like, you're doing all this professing now. Why didn't you guys do that at the right time while we were still in this process? Exactly. Michelle, I think David was like, well, sorry guys, I gotta go. I have to go to work. And Michelle's like, see you losers. I could kind of hear her, like, she didn't say it really loud, but loud enough for them to hear. And then David tries to go over and apologize and fix things again. And she's like, you know, okay. So I guess he's trying to make her feel salty for making fun of them. But she's like, no, it doesn't matter. You know, he doesn't have to say anything else to me. I'm done with it. My closure is done. He's just doing that for himself. And he is, because he wants to be this great guy that he's not. You can be great in some ways and not great in others. You can have bad moments, and just admit that and be truthful and be honest. There's no real remorse being shown. Thomas and Camille are like, hey, there's a lot going on here at my birthday party. Hopefully there's no more bombshells, but LOL, here comes in a catchy walking in right at the end of the party. Brandon else introduces himself, and then, you know, Catchy looking kind of salty, but he just shakes his hand and, you know, doesn't say much else. Then he checks in, you know, Brandon checks in with his wifey-to-be. So, you have any anxiety? You okay, baby? And then he goes back up to the Catchy a little bit later and said, oh, I just want to be clear that I am her fiance. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, he's like, oh, like, I really care. But no, you know, and Catchy had some look in his face like he did care. Like he was jealous, all right? Then, you know, they're like, hey, come on, sit down, stay, hang out, you know. And then Catchy like, no, I got me a day. Like, you don't got no day. And Catchy, you ain't got no day. He said, well, it's open season. I think he was trying to make fun of the fact that, as at the same time trying to make her feel salty, but making fun of the fact that it is open season for her. She about to get married 5 minutes after she divorced you, and I don't think the ink dried on the papers. Too much PDA between Brandon and Em. It was like they was trying to rub it in people's face, especially Catchy's. Then, he's about to leave, so Em has to make her little statement and get more attention on her and her boo. Like, Ikechi, can I talk to you? Like, no, I really don't want to. No, thank you. So she was like, well, since you don't want to talk to me off to the side, I just want to say I apologize for the way I reacted to you, and I really do care. It's like, I don't give a bleep. I could give two bleeps. And so that's kind of how it was left off. But she was like, oh, it's all love. She's trying to look like the bigger person at the end of this, and he seems like he's out the door. And he was like, you know what, this is just what I predicted. She just wants a plug and play hubby. It's only been about 3 weeks, and she already got a new man to take my place. It's basically what I predicted. This is the type of person she is, a plug and play. I feel like he had a point with that plug and play. I thought that was real cute how he put that together. Still don't know how bad M really was, but we can see M has issues. And even though I think it's fast, I've seen people do it and make it work. We'll see if that's the case with her. So Alan had to finally state his piece. Of course, he waited till David was gone. It's like, I don't mean to stir the pot or anything, Madison, but basically, didn't you say you were trying to meet up with me and all this? And she's like, well, she was like, why? She's like, basically just to give an olive branch and just to close things out. And he's like, I have no ill will to you, but I took a hit, but I got a lot of revelations about myself. I've been out there trying to explore. I think he wanted Madison to know he'd been out there getting him some, and that he is a viable man. I think he's trying to prove some type of point to her, even still at this moment. And he was like, I've been hanging and banging, but I don't want to be that. I tried to go through the phase of being the HOE word, but, I don't want that. I really want to be happy, and I really want to be with that one person, explore with them. So it's good to see where Alan's head is at, but I think he was just trying to prove a point that he could get some, and Madison missed out on whatever he had to offer. And Michelle's like, she's happy for everyone trying to move on in whatever way that they're moving on, but I'm pretty sure she didn't mean David and Michelle. But she's like, basically, I'm a party of one. I'm still haven't tried to move on. I haven't done anything. Michelle, you're the most sane person in the room. It takes time. Alan had to try to recover and prove a point to himself by going out there. Em tried to have to prove a point to herself by trying to get engaged again in 5 minutes. Everybody's trying to prove points of why their relationships didn't work. And I think Juan too. Juan didn't say he was seeing anyone either. And so Juan, Michelle, maybe you guys can pair up. I'm not seeing it. But also, it takes time to heal. You thought you were going to be married to someone that you really wanted to be with for life, and it didn't work out. It's practical, and it makes sense to take time to reevaluate, chill, rest within yourself, figure yourself out. What do you really want? All of the lessons that you need to learn, and just kind of recap those in your mind and kind of meditate on those things, and just take your time. And when the opportunity presents itself, when you're ready, then go back out there. But Michelle, definitely not a fail. You're probably the one that makes the most sense, you and Juan. But I feel like Juan is still jonesing for Carla, because that's all he kept saying was like, Carla, are we still gonna be friends? Are we still gonna be friends? Come on, Carla, come on. I wasn't gonna hook up with you while you were my wife, but I may try to hook up with you if I know there's gonna be no strings attached. I don't know. I was just kind of I'm feeling that a bit, but it may not be the case. He may just be having separation anxiety because he spent weeks with this person and things were pretty good. And maybe he's realizing he's missing out, or he missed out on something that could have worked out. Whatever the case, everybody's trying to move on in the way that they know how to move on. Michelle and Dave were the only one that jumped into a ready-made relationship because they already jumped in during the process. As much as they yuck me out, if they're with each other, if they belong together, technically, go ahead and if you're gonna make it work, and please don't involve anybody else in your life shenanigans. You can be messy together, and hopefully that works out for you. Hopefully no one else gets stuck with you. That's my final thoughts on them. So what are you guys' thoughts, comments, questions? What did you think about the finale? It was a lot for me. The reunion is gonna come out, and it's just, to me, it's gonna be like beating a dead horse, because I feel like we've went over all of these things, but I guess they're all gonna say everything together. But it's like they had two different opportunities to hash things out, but in this case they're not going to be able to leave. They're going to have to sit there and talk everything out. So we're going to see that unfold, and hopefully that will be something to watch. I'm kind of iffy on how I feel about it. The only main reason I want to watch the reunion is to see, is there any new developments? Are people still together? Are other people found someone new? Like, how is that working out? And that's really the main reason I want to watch. Not really to rehash the same things that we have been talking about with MM and Akechi and the whole Michelle, David, and Madison fiasco. Those are the main stories that at this point I think we can be done with. But I'm definitely going to be here for that reunion, because I do need to know that extra information of how things are going, what's next, who's together, who's not together, are there new relationships beginning, all of that. So that's going to be fun. All right, guys. Again, we'll talk more faith, love, and trends right here on CBiz Media. I'll talk to you again next time. All the best, and God bless.